Hello. So this is, like I said, this is the video just to make up for the technical issues we had last session. So what I'm going to start off with is just this first one, which is the blending of the two materials, which is really fun. You can see what I've got here. It kind of looks like there's a really harsh light coming out from the y-axis or from above it, which is quite cool. But really, this is just two materials that are sitting on top of the same model, blending them together. But then we're using something called a combination of different nodes to actually define um, the red to only show in certain areas. So in this case, we can show it to only show on the y-axis, and we can actually blend it in to either be very soft or to be very harsh. And here I've kind of got a bit of an in between of soft and harsh. So if we just quickly have a look over the actual material itself, see what we're going to be creating, you can see that's actually pretty simple. So this is what I was going to be making. So as we went over in class, I can change my node sizes just by selecting a node and hitting on my my numeric strip. 1 to make it just condensed, 2 to make it just shows us our outputs and our inputs, and 3 shows us the whole thing. 5 can switch the names. You can see there my names are switching. So if you ever see stuff collapse and grow like that, I'm just hitting 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so everything at 3. So you can see here our node group is pretty simple. Let me just clean this up. Maya, it does a really bad job of cleaning up nodes for some reason. Cool. So one thing you do notice, or one thing I'll point out, is that I've not actually got a standard material. I've got this mixing material, this mixing shader. That's what's actually driving my my model, the actual visuals of my model, because I've already got all my materials pre-set up, so there's no reason me to send this into another material. That's quite cool. So this is the thing that I actually attach to my object, and I can do that because it's got a SG shader at the end of it. Any node where you get this little blue box next to it, looks like this, that's just basically saying, yes, I can attach to a shader, I can do a shader thing. I can display myself. Normally anything else, like these purple shaders here, they don't have the capacity to actually render on an object, but that's not what we're worried about. Cool, so as you can see here, it's a very simple node makeup. I've got two standard materials. I've got a red material and I've got a very dark grey material. So in fact what I'll do, just to be very call this grey, I'll call this under, actually, and I call this upper. There we go. So I know that my red material is going to be the things on top, and my grey material is going to be things on below it. And then we've got these 3 nodes here that we've never used. In fact, these 4 nodes. We've never used these 4 nodes before. The AI utility, the AI multiply, the AI range, and the AI mixing. As I've just called it mixing in this one. Now, we can set up this node cluster very easy. We can make our 2 materials ahead of time. And you don't have to have just these materials, because these are standard materials like this. They've still got all their inputs, so I could have a massive chain of nodes coming from each one of these to create rust on this, and then paint on this with all these different textural qualities and all this sort of stuff, height maps and all that sort of stuff. And then we just blend them together right here in the mix node. So first of all, I've just created my 2 materials. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll leave them off for now, because it's not what I want to do. Well, really what I should be doing is actually creating a new node altogether. So I'm going to delete my mixing. So then you can see there that we've actually lost our material on the object. And I'm going to create a new node group altogether. I'm going to start from scratch. Okay, so I don't have to worry about my scene in the minute. This can look however it wants. Right now, what I want to do is inside my hybrid shade, I just want to tab so I can get my selection, and I'm going to type out AI utility. So I get AI utility like that. I'm just going to select that and create that node. So an AI utility can actually be displayed, which is good, can actually be rendered. But what an AI utility is a node which has a few different functions attached to it. It can actually change the way it's actually displayed, if it's either a flat or a lambert, or a plastic, metallic, ambok, or a NDOTI, N.I. I'm not sure what they are. But what we want to do is just use this this AI utility to define our normal. And I'm talking about normal as in our lovely little Y, X, Z axis down here. Because that's going to tell us, right, I can grab and assign stuff to the Y axis, to the red axis, to the Z axis very, very easily. So what I'm going to do, select the AI utility node, shade mode I'm just going to put to flat, and color mode I'm going to change that to normal. So far so good. So that's good. And what we can actually do as well is middle mouse. So I'm just going to hover over this. I can middle mouse hold and drag it onto my object, and it actually assigns it. So because this is a rendered object, I can actually have a look at what that looks like. There we go. So that's what our object currently looks like. Now you can see we've got some normals going on here. We've got a it's very kind of soft and pastel, but if you notice, anything that is predominantly facing upwards, or the more vertical, the more vertical a face appears, the greener it is. The more to the side of the object, the bluer it is, and the more to either the front or the back of an object, the redder it is. So that's made up. That then comes together to make up this really pastel tone here. But we are just working off red, green, blue, straight up red, green, blue. So I know that's working. That's cool. Next, it's the AI multiply layer. So again, what I'm going to do, tab to get my selection, AI mult until I get AI multiply. Bring that up. And I'm just going to drag out from the color of the out, of my utility, down to the input 1. And then I'm just going to turn this input 2 to green. Basically saying we're looking for the green channel. And I can just hit green up here. Boom. Green. So that's me just saying, hey, we're looking for the green. If I wanted that to be red, just go up here, change it to red. If I want it to be blue, I can change it to blue. But I'm looking for the green of the normals. There we go. Now, if we have a look at that, we can't see anything, nothing's changed. Because the node pipeline isn't giving us any way to render this just yet. Now what we're going to do is work on a bit of faith at first. I'm going to make this node cluster basically to the end, and then we're going to have a look at it just to check out what's going on. So this is basically saying, hey, I want to isolate my green axis, y-axis, but this is actually going to be covering the entire model. It's basically going to flood in the entire model. So what I'm going to do is actually create something where I can actually start to clamp the green to the y-axis, basically isolate off the green and then force this green to one place. So I'm going to bring up an AI range. So an AI range, like that. And again, I'm just going to pull the out color of that into the input of that, because we've only got the green color coming out of this. Now, the AI range is very, very cool because it allows us to actually, using some of these input and output min and max, we can actually start to force the green to leave the areas that are either going to be blue or red predominantly, and then isolate themselves into the green areas, the areas that are going to be much more on the y-axis. So that way we can actually start to give it a we can start to isolate stuff effectively. Okay, I'll just stop that render. So you might have noticed things have just jumped a little bit. I've just had a crash, and this is something I kind of want to point out as well. When we're doing this sort of stuff, you've got to be saving all the time. The crash came from me just doing a quick test, or a quick just kind of display test with just adding in this range into a standard material, and I still had my viewport rendering, and when I disconnected it, it just did a fatal crash. So these are one of the things you just got to be aware of. It might be a system error just on my part. It might be something that is in Maya generally. It might be something that Maya just can't handle that well. But just to be on the safe side, always be saving ABS. And whenever you don't need a renderer, just remember to click the little red square and stop the render, just to save your stress. So one thing we can do is actually apply a AI standard material at the very end. Just plug our range into that, and then we can actually have a look at what's going on in each one of these nodes. So if that's all set up, I'm just going to do a just have a see what it looks like. Now I can actually go in and isolate some of these other nodes that we've not been able to look at just yet. I'm just going to add the AI standard, plug my color out to my base color. Now what's going to happen here is it won't automatically update. It won't see that the chain ends with here and then automatically update this. This has still got the AI utility attached to it. So I'm just going to have to click and drag this over to my model. Middle mouse drag. See, it goes a little bit whiter, which means it's actually been attached. Now if I open up the renderer, you can see that this is what our model now looks like. Do another quick render, which is great. But we don't necessarily see the output. We don't see like the special node information. That's because one, I've got the final node selected, but two, I've not got this actually turned on right here, this isolate selected. If I turn that on and then start clicking on some of these nodes, you can see that on my AI range, it goes all green. On the AI multiply, again, all green. And on my AI utility, it has our normal information there. Now multiply, that's what the multiply layer gives us. Now on my AI range, we've not changed any of the values yet, so no change appears. So on my AI range, you can see here that we've got the input min max and the output min max. And we can actually start adjusting these to actually start isolating or forcing the green to only show around the green normal areas. So I'm mainly going to be using the inputs for this, and I said in class I'm still not 100% like what these specifically mean, but what I do kind of understand is the bigger the distance between the input max and the input min, the more of a gradient you get between the two values. You can see there right away we're getting some good results. I've just input maxed, turned it up a little bit. Everything goes a little bit darker, and then if I pull my input min up a little bit, it's almost like the lights are going off and we're only getting this top shadow here, or this top light. And that's exactly what we're looking for. What this will eventually do is we can assign materials to only show inside the green, and then the other material will sit underneath in the black. So that's good. You can check some of the other, like I said, I'm only going to be really using the inputs. You can see the output kind of goes white, and the output max doesn't really, it kind of makes it a bit brighter, but it's a little bit uncontrollable. So let's get something like nice like that. So you can take down these numbers that I've got here, or you can experiment with your own. Smooth stepping kind of it tries to blend the two things in a little bit more subtly, but I find it kind of darkens everything off a bit too much. What we lose, or what we gain from that nice smooth gradient, we lose inside the intensity of the color. And then underneath here, we've also got the contrast pivot, bias, and gain. Gain is basically just, it's a volume. So it can be a little bit finicky. And then contrast. Again, that's more like the contrast slider inside Photoshop. So the bias, bias is almost acting like a bit of an intensity. So there you go. I'm going to leave it like that. So using my AI range, I was able to isolate certain areas of the model to look a little bit nicer. So there we go. So there, I'm really starting to isolate down certain areas of the mesh which are facing predominantly in the y-axis to only show this material. Cool. I'm going to stop the render, and I'm going to decouple. In fact, I'm just going to take away this AI standard surface, like that. You can see our model goes green because we've actually taken away that node it was rendering from. But that's totally fine. We've got this bit worked out and all set up and nice. So this is looking good. Now what it's time to do is just set up a couple of materials. And like I said before, I'm just going to set up two very basic materials. So two standard surfaces. I'm going to make this one red. And I'm going to make another one, which is going to be that dark grey. Yeah. Just neaten everything up a little bit. So pressing 1 to condense down the nodes. Cool. And now the last thing I'm going to use, or the last thing I'm going to create, is the AIMixer. So how we can actually bring all these different things together to create our final result. So again, I'm just neatening stuff up a little bit. So if I tab in space, AIMix shader, that's what we want. Bring that up. And what you can see here, we've got a few different things to look at. We've got the mix, which is what is going to be controlled by our utility and range stuff we've made up here. And then we've got the two inputs. So quite simply what I can do is take the green channel from this, because remember we're only using the green. I'm going to take the green channel from this, I'm going to go all the way into the green mix. Boom. So that's now basically creating a mask from our AI range stuff here. And then my input 1 and input 2, I'm going to start putting stuff in there. Now, input 1 is going to be what's being controlled by the mix range here, and input 2 is basically the underlying surface. So I want the red to be on top, and I want the grey to be on the bottom. In fact, I might have got them mixed up. We'll just plug them in and have a see. Go. So I'll pull out that colour to input 1, pull out that colour to input 2. Middle mouse drag, because this is a renderable shader, because we've got our little SG node at the end. I'm going to middle mouse drag that onto my object. Material's been applied. Open this up. Take off that. Render. There we go. So not quite right. So I'm actually going to flip these nodes around. So I'm going to put the red on the bottom and the grey on the top. Stop the render. Deselect these, and just to make it easier on myself, I'm just going to move that down there. Drag these up. Color out to shade 1. Color out to shade 2. And there we go. So now you can see the result. So the grey, which is essentially input 1, is our underlying surface. And I can actually affect that, and you can see it's turning up the roughness, takes away the roughness, turning down the roughness, obviously adds a bit more specularity to it. I can do the same thing on here as well, on my lower. When you want to update, there we go. So here as well, I can change things here. So I can change the color to be blue, which is quite cool. Now because stop render because it's a little chugging. Now because this mixer here has our shader right here, I don't need to plug this into an AI standard to get it to show on our object. It's literally just taking two already pre-made materials, blending them together using whatever sort of method we want. In this case, we've used the AI utility multiply to choose the green channel, and then the range to basically clamp that green channel into the y-axis, because it looks for the green values and basically says, right, the more intense the green, the more I'm going to clamp to it. And then I've just literally input these into here to be my colors. But like I said before, you could have massive node change for these. You could have absolutely huge material change set up, because then they're only being mixed here, and then this will plug it, and then you're good to go. So it's quite simple. I'll just go over the chain again. We started off with the AI utility, change my shader mode to flat, my color mode to normal, and then inside the new multiply layer, bring the color out of that into the input 1, and then change input 2 to green, and then my range, take my input color, my output color of that into my input color of here. Here is when we start to kind of clamp down our information. Now what you can do is actually leave that alone until you've actually got everything set up, and then start doing your ranges so that you can actually see the result. And then that goes into the AI mix shader, into the mix, using the green channel, because we're using the green color to define where our axis essentially. And then from two standard materials, I plug them into AI, into shader 1, shader 2, and then this can get applied to my object. This shader can get applied to my object. These are literally just AI standards. I believe you can even just use Lamberts and stuff. You can use normal nodes. And nothing gets overwritten as well. So you can have one be super specular with all this kind of cool transmission and subsurface scattering, and then one can be a very basic material, and it won't matter because literally we're blending them together. So that's setting up the AI mixer and blending. Relatively simple. It's fun to have a play with. Obviously this dragon's really nice because it's got a lot of nice crooked detail in it, but quite simple. Can be condensed down very small, and you can use this sort of stuff for tons of stuff, absolutely tons of stuff. Yeah, there isn't really any restrictions for this. Okay.